Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Sunday Zoom meeting and another podcast episode. If you are watching on YouTube or listening to the podcast, you can find out more about our meetings, our online community, how to get involved, paid private mentoring with myself on the website. It's www.acimwithkeith.com. So we are back on home ground for this game. We had two away games last week and the week before. And if you're watching on YouTube, I will put the links to those two talks I gave with Jon Mundy and with Awakening Together if you wanted to watch those. All right, so on with today's meeting. Let's dig out some quotes I prepared before we came on. I thought we would start with lesson 55. If you're following the lessons, sort of on the calendar, this is where we're up to the reviews. And I think this is a really, really important, crucial thing to understand about A Course in Miracles. Jesus has hit us with some really strong metaphysics as we've been going through the workbook. I invented the world I see. So I've invented Keith and I've invented the whole world, I consciousness. And we're all that consciousness. But it's very important to understand, even as we're learning that the world is an illusion, and it is, that's not how we practice A Course in Miracles. It's important to know that the world is an illusion because this is the reason we do forgiveness. This is what forgiveness is about. If the world is an illusion, it doesn't mean anything and it has no power over me. And therefore, forgiveness is looking at the fact that I have given it a meaning and I have given it power. But I don't, I do not, in A Course in Miracles, this is a very crucial thing to understand. I do not stand in front of the world saying you are an illusion. That's not how you practice A Course in Miracles. I do not practice A Course in Miracles by looking at the body going, you are an illusion. That's not, Jesus calls that a particularly unworthy form of denial. Okay, so that is not what A Course in Miracles is about. Denying that the world is real and that's it, I'll wake up. And Jesus is quite clear that you won't. Because his whole forgiveness process rests on something completely different. So let's begin with a quote from lesson 55, and this is a review of lesson 21. I am determined to see things differently. What I see now are but signs of disease, disaster, and death. This cannot be what God created for his beloved Son. The very fact that I see such things is proof that I do not understand God. Therefore, I also do not understand his Son, which is what I am. What I see tells me that I do not know who I am. I am determined to see the witnesses to the truth in me rather than those which show me an illusion of myself. So the practice of the Course is not looking at images of famine and war and disaster and feeling disturbed by it and then going, but it's okay because it's just an illusion. That's not how we change our mind. I want to take another quote. This is from chapter 4, The Illusions of the Ego, section 1, Right Teaching and Right Learning, and it's paragraph 4. The dreamer, which is all of us, there's one dreamer, dreaming itself to be everyone. The dreamer who doubts the reality of his dream while he is still dreaming is not really healing his split mind. You dream of a separated ego, and believe in a world that rests upon it. This is very real to you. You cannot undo it by not changing your mind about it. So now we're getting into what Jesus is saying. Again, he's not saying, metaphysically speaking, he's saying awareness of dreaming is the real functions of God's teachers. They watch the dream figures come and go, shift and change, suffer and die, and they're not deceived by what they see. So metaphysically, that's true. And but what's important is that we're not denying what we see. And we're not pretending we're not seeing awfulness. We're not pretending that we don't see suffering. We're not pretending that we don't see sickness. We're not pretending that we don't see death. That's crucially important. You have to look at what you're seeing. Because the real world, Jesus tells us, is the state of mind where the world is seen to be nothing for nothing other than forgiveness. That's its purpose. And really what that means is that the world is a warning system that you have chosen the wrong mind. You've chosen to identify as an ego. It's only by my identification as an ego and a separate self that I can be disturbed by what's happening with my body, or disturbed about what's happening with other bodies, or disturbed about what's happening in the dream. And so I don't then stay identified as a body and an insane voice talking to itself in my mind. I don't stay identified as a dream figure and go, la, 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 none of it's real. Instead, I have to look at what I'm genuinely seeing and feeling and experiencing in the world, because that is what lets me know that I have chosen the wrong teacher, that I'm in my wrong mind, that I've become insane, that I've thrown our shared identity as the Holy Spirit, awareness, out of my mind. I have made a separate self for myself out of stories and thoughts. I'm identified as a body, and now I'm disturbed by what the world is doing. And it's not going, I shouldn't be disturbed, it's just an illusion. No. The purpose of the world is to have you go back to your mind. The world shows me I have chosen the wrong teacher. I'm insane. I think I'm a separate self. I think I'm a body amongst other bodies, and I'm upset by it. And so the first thing we have to do in A Course in Miracles is we have to look at the error the way it is and not the way we've set it up. We have to look at the mistake that's being made in order to have the power to choose against it. One problem, one solution to every problem, because there's only one problem. Anything you think you have a problem about is a symptom. It's not a problem. The one problem is that you've chosen to identify as separate. You've chosen to identify as body and an insane voice talking to itself in your mind that's not you, and you've decided that's who you are. It's not. But that's the only problem we ever have. And your warning sign that you have done that is how disturbed you are by the world, by the interpretation that you're putting on the world, that it's guilty, that it's unfair, that it shouldn't be doing this, that this is not right, this is not meant how it's meant to be. Okay, so it's not. And again, those are not problems. Those are symptoms of one problem, which is that you've chosen to identify with an illusion of yourself. So the answer isn't that I, the separate self, I, the body, start going, well, you, the body, you're not really guilty because you're not real. You're not really fearful because you don't exist. That's not the answer. Okay, changing my mind means literally changing what I identify as. Literally, that's what it means. It doesn't mean having my separate self-identity hold a different view. It doesn't mean having my separate self-identity sort of like go, okay, well, I thought the world was disturbing, but it doesn't really exist, and so it's all fine. So that's not the purpose of the world. The purpose of the world is for me to see that I've gone insane. I'm identified with this illusion of myself, and I need to choose again. So I go back to my mind and I change what I identify as. Now, I don't do that by choosing something. I do that by letting go of something. The very fact that I have seen the world as hateful and ugly and vicious and mean and unfair, full of victims and victimizers and despair and hopelessness and violence, and the very fact that I've seen that, that just tells me that I've gone insane. I'm identified with an illusion of myself. And that's the purpose the world has. When we choose the Holy Spirit as a teacher, that is the only purpose the world has, which is to show us we're insane and have us go back to our mind to make a different choice. Now, we see we're insane. We have chosen the ego as a teacher. We're identifying as a separate self, a body with a story. And so we don't, from that position, go and try and choose the Holy Spirit. You can't do that. Okay, you have to undo your mistaken identification as a body and an insane voice talking to itself. And the minute you do, you are automatically awareness in the Holy Spirit. So we return to our identity in the Holy Spirit, not by choosing something, but by letting something go. Identification with thoughts. Identification as a self made out of thoughts. Identification as a concept of myself. So that's how I go back and I choose differently. Now, when I know that what I am, awareness in the Holy Spirit, I know that's the truth of everyone. And within the world, there is only the expression of that knowing, and there is a crying out for that knowing. So when I know what I am, that's not a conceptual self, that's not made out of thoughts. When I've let those go to identify as what I am in the Holy Spirit, and I see that as the truth of everyone, then within the world, you're just seeing expressions of that knowledge and calls for help from people who think they are the insane voice talking to itself in their mind. Anyone who thinks they are the insane voice talking to itself in their mind, the body with a story, locked into this separate identity, is automatically calling out for love. Just like whenever you are identified as a body with a story, the insane voice talking to itself in your mind, you're automatically calling out for love. It doesn't matter how holy you think you are, how advanced you think you are. If you think you are the self made out of stories, if you think the thoughts in your mind are yours, if you think you are this self made out of stories, this separate self, you're calling out for love. And so is everyone else. So again, our purpose for the world, when we choose the Holy Spirit as our teacher, the purpose of the world is not that we stand in front of it going, you're an illusion. Instead, we have to look at what we're seeing in the world. Because the world is an illusion, it means nothing. You have to look at what you're seeing. Because that's your feedback. If you're seeing ugliness in the world, you have chosen the ugliness of yourself, separateness and guilt, inadequacy, painful limitation of what you are. And so you can only know what you've chosen for yourself by how you are perceiving the world. So again, it's not about whether the world is an illusion or not. It's about what are you seeing the world as meaning. Do you think the world is wrong? You could only feel that way if you, first of all, felt the wrongness of your own decision. Nothing is wrong in the world. Everything is exactly how it needs to be. It's the atonement. The world could only be wrong if it was for something other than forgiveness, but it's not. It's purely for forgiveness. It's purely so you look at it and see what you're seeing and know that means what you have chosen to identify as. Nothing in the world is wrong. Everything is exactly as it should be. That doesn't mean there won't be actions that will be participated in the world. That's also perfect. Okay, but there's nothing wrong in the world. No one is wrong. Everything's exactly as it should be. And if you think it's wrong, that's because you think you're wrong. That's your guilt. So again, the sole responsibility of the miracle worker is to accept the atonement for himself. Nothing's wrong. If you think you have a mission out there to correct wrongness, you're a holy ego. You haven't changed your mind. When you change your mind, the world's not wrong. It's exactly as it needs to be. It's for forgiveness. It's for undoing the wrongness that you think is in it, which is really the wrongness that you believe about yourself. Let's take another quote. So this is also from lesson 55. It's a review of lesson 25. Yeah, I'm going to skip over that one. Let me have a different look here. Let's take this one. This is from lesson 161, paragraph 4. One brother is all brothers. Every mind contains all minds, for every mind is one. Such is the truth. Yet do these thoughts make clear the meaning of creation? Do these words bring perfect clarity with them to you? What can they seem to be but empty sounds? Pretty, perhaps, correct in sentiment, yet fundamentally not understood or understandable. The mind that taught itself to think specifically can no longer grasp abstraction in the sense that it is all-encompassing. We need to see a little that we learn a lot. So again, the course is not about going around going, all brothers are one brother. I have no brothers. They're all illusions. Why do I have to forgive them? Because, it's not real. It's just a dream. Okay, I'm upset with people. I think I hate them, but they don't really exist, so it doesn't matter. So again, Jesus is saying the dreamer that doubts his dream is not healing his split mind. Our job is not to see a disappeared world. Our job is to see a forgiven world where nothing is wrong. So it's useless for us to pretend we don't believe in the separated state. It's useless for us to spout metaphysics and go, one brother is all brothers, every mind is one mind. And the reason for that is because the person that spouts those metaphysics doesn't exist. The brother that's saying one brother is all brothers, every mind is all minds, it's an illusion. You haven't changed your mind. You're still identified as an illusion of yourself, but you're just saying everyone else is an illusion, which is useless. Again, the sole responsibility of the miracle worker is to accept the atonement for himself. So again, with all these particular quotes, Jesus is saying the same thing. He's saying it's not about calling illusions illusions. He's saying you have to look at how you are seeing the illusions. You know, this particular one, one brother is all brothers, every mind is all minds, for every mind is one. That's an experience you can have, but you can only have that experience when there's no perception, when there's no interpretation. So there's an experience possible where there's no Keith present. There's just a pure beingness, which is the truth of everything and everyone. But it's useless for I, Keith, to say one brother is all brothers, every mind contains all minds, because that's an illusion, calling everything else an illusion. So instead, it's only ever about changing our own mind. Let's take another quote. Yeah, this is from lesson 52, which is a review of lesson 10. My thoughts do not mean anything. I have no private thoughts, yet it is only private thoughts of which I am aware. What can these thoughts mean? They do not exist, and so they mean nothing. Yet my mind is part of creation and part of its creator. Would I not rather join the thinking of the universe than to obscure all that is really mine with my pitiful and meaningless private thoughts? So this is the one problem we ever have. You think your separate self-thoughts are you. You think the voice in your head is you, but it doesn't exist, and it means nothing. And we spend our whole life chasing after what this voice in our head wants. You know, it's craving, it's neediness, it's wanting, it's need to hate other people so it can hate itself less. You know, separate interests, trying to manipulate the world to finally be happy as an ego. And Jesus is going, it doesn't exist. It's not you. You're not a separate self. It's not real. It means nothing, and it's not you. But when I identify as that, when I believe the thoughts, when I think I am the thinker of thoughts, when I think that the mad goals in here are mine, when I identify as a separate self, now I'm going to see the world as a very ugly, dangerous, bad, terrifying, sinful place. And it's only by being honest and seeing that I'm seeing the world that way, I can know the mistake I've made. I've identified with this lunatic in my head that means nothing. And all the wrongness that I'm seeing in the world is the wrongness I believe about myself because I think I'm separate. As Jesus says this in lesson 93, the self you made is not the Son of God. Therefore, this self does not exist at all. It's neither bad nor good. It's unreal and nothing more than that. And so up until we start practicing A Course in Miracles, we think we are that self. Now, again, that's not good or bad or sinful or anything like it. It's simply untrue. And there is no happiness as that self made out of thoughts. None. No happiness at all. And so we monitor the world for the meaning we've given it. And if we're seeing the world as wrong and needs correcting, we notice that and go, I'm insane. I thought I was identified with this pretend self made out of thoughts. Otherwise, I couldn't see the world as wrong. Otherwise, I'd see the world as absolutely perfect, no matter what's happening, because it's for forgiveness. And so I know from how I'm seeing the world, not by calling it an illusion, I know from the meaning I've given to the world, I'm insane. I think I'm this thinker of thoughts, which doesn't exist. And so I look at the wrongness that's come up in me that I thought was in the world and understand that's my decision to be this insane self made out of thoughts. I've taken the noise in my head seriously. I thought it was me, but you're not the noise in your head. It means nothing, absolutely nothing. All of the likes and the wants and the needs and the opinions and the arguments, nonsense. Jesus says, yeah, but it means nothing. It's not evil. It's not bad. It's painful, very painful, but it's not true. It's just an illusion and it means nothing. It doesn't mean one thing. Your opinions on anything means nothing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And so all we do, we stop saying the world is wrong. We look at the feeling of wrongness that was coming up in us and we go, that's because I was insane. Right now, I'm choosing to be an ego. I'm choosing to be this mad identity made out of thoughts that's not me. And I look on that with complete forgiveness, complete and total forgiveness, without commentary, without opinion, you know, without saying, you're not so bad. No, no commentary. Non-judgmental looking. That's what forgiveness is. Looking at the decision to be a separate self without judging yourself for it. And there's a softness that rises in your mind with that. There's an awareness that's present. There's a presence. As long as it's non-judgmental, as long as you're not beating yourself over the head with a course, as long as you're not trying to fix yourself, as long as you're not trying to not be an ego, as long as you're not trying to fix the ego. This is the trap everyone falls into with forgiveness. Because some form of ego attack happens, all this awfulness is happening in me, and it's like, I'm failing the course. I shouldn't be doing this. How do I get rid of the darkness? How do I fix this? How do I make this go away? How do I go back to being a happy ego? Or, a purer motivation, how do I go back to the peace of the Holy Spirit? But you can't. It's like flypaper. Everything you try to do to fix this is going to cement you further into it. You're trapped in flypaper, and every movement that you make, everything you try and do locks you further into ego. The desire to be free of the ego is ego. The desire to fix the ego is ego. The desire to get rid of the ego is ego. So it's flypaper. You're stuck. And so there's only one thing you can do. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So you stop and you look at the mistaken decision you've made to identify with the mad thoughts in your head, and you don't judge it. You completely forgive it. Allow the present moment to be. No fighting. You're doing nothing except looking with complete and total forgiveness. And the peace comes, and the softness comes. The felt sense of being comes in. This alert presence, which is not a person, it's a presence. And you can't grasp at it or start defining it or start trying to hold on to it. No, 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 no. You do nothing. And you feel this, that rises. And it is not defined by thoughts. This is a non-conceptual identity that looks with no judgment. It's in behind all the mad thoughts that are not you. And you can only get to it, once you've started drowning in ego, you can only get to it by doing nothing. By looking at the ego without judgment, looking at the decision you're making to identify as a separate self with no judgment of yourself for it. Who is the one that sees this decision without judging it? It is this presence, this felt sense of being. It is what you are that's not a person or a body. It is awareness. And it's the truth of everyone. In behind all the insane voices talking to themselves that mean nothing is this: God's one holy innocent Son as the truth of everything and everyone. And again, now we look on a world where this knowledge is being expressed. And where it's being called out for by people who think they are the insane voice talking to itself in their mind. Right, let's throw it open to questions. So Stephanie, is there anything in the chat box that we want to address?
Yes, there are some questions lining up here.
Cool.
So I'm going to just continue on here, all right? First question. Okay. It is clear that, oh, this is from Yane, by the way.
Okay.
It is clear that looking at the error is crucial to go beyond it. I use journaling, and this seems to help. Is there anything else you would recommend as a tool for looking with the Holy Spirit?
So Jesus says, now you're being shown you can escape. All that is required is that you look on the problem the way it is, not the way you've set it up. You are not the insane voice talking to itself in your mind. You are not a body with a story. You are this, in behind thoughts, the one who sees thoughts without judgment. Awareness. You do not have to become this. You do not have to put it there. It is what you already are. It is veiled by your identification with thoughts and thinking they're you. But it is never absent, because this is the truth of you and the Holy Spirit. Non-judgmental awareness. And all you're ever doing is extricating yourself from the false ideas of what you are. And so all you're ever doing is noticing that you're seeing a world of attack and victims and victimizers and all the rest of it, which means you've identified as a body. You've identified as an illusion of yourself. You've identified with the mad thoughts in your head and think they're you. They're not. You can think it's you all you want. It's not you. And suffering won't end until you let it go. Now, very few people let that go straight away. And so for the rest of us, we have a Course in Miracles, plural, where we use a miracle every single time to come back from the madness of thinking the thoughts in our head are us. So there's no problem with what's happening in the world. The problem is when you think it's happening to you. Because the you that thinks it's happening to them doesn't exist. It's made out of thoughts. Nothing's happening to you. Not when we come back to our right mind. And the only way back is to do nothing about the fact that we're choosing to be an ego. But notice it with complete non-judgment. How else can you return to your identity as awareness other than by looking at your decision to be an ego with non-judgmental awareness? So that's the only way out of ego. And so watch for the temptation in situations to go, I'm having an ego attack. I feel so upset. I'm so terrified. I'm so afraid. I'm so angry. I'm so murderous. How do I fix it? How do I get rid of it? What's my formula? What's my formula? No, you're stuck in the flypaper. Do nothing except notice the suffering that's taking place because you think you're a self-concept. None of the concepts that are in your mind are about you. None of your beliefs about what you are true. Every single one of them is a lie. What you are cannot be limited by a thought. And so if you have a belief about yourself, that's wrong. If you have a concept about who you are, that's wrong. All of them are wrong. What you are is in behind all of that. And so we look at the decision to be an ego without judging ourselves for it. It is not what's happening to my ego. That's the problem. The problem is I think I'm an ego. And the only way out is to completely forgive yourself for that. To look on it with total non-judgment. To be completely peaceful with the non-peace being there. So again, don't fall into the flypaper trap. Anything you do is wrong. You're doing it as an ego to try and get out of ego. It's flypaper. You have to do nothing. But notice the problem the way it is rather than the way you've set it up. And in that looking, there is this presence that we all are. This stillness, this peace. So we find Christ in the looking. It's a course in looking. I think I see an evil world and a bad world and a dangerous world and a guilty world, which means I'm insane. So can I look at the decision I'm making to be this crazy person in my head? But who's looking? It is not a thought. It is not a concept. It is nothing you can start defining. It is the Holy Spirit, our shared identity. So I hope that makes sense. Next question, Stephanie.
Very helpful. Okay, the next one is from Christy. Why is the world described as meaningless if it's so important to look at it for feedback? Surely it is meaningful. If
No.
something is actually
Sorry, go ahead.
meaningless,
Yes.
can you hear me all right?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Just carry on with the, would you want me to complete,
Please.
okay, I'll start off again. Why is the world described as meaningless if it's so important to look at it for feedback? Surely it is meaningful. If something is actually meaningless, then it's okay just to ignore it, isn't it?
Okay, so that's the point of today. So the first thing is the reason the world is meaningless is because it comes from meaningless thoughts. It's a projection of the thoughts of separateness, sin, guilt, fear, and sacrifice in the mind. That's what the world comes from. Those thoughts are illusions because there's no such thing as separateness, sin, guilt, or fear. We made the whole thing up. Okay, so those thoughts don't exist. And the world that is the projection of them has no meaning because it's based on what has no meaning, what doesn't exist. So the world is meaningless because it's an illusion. However, Jesus says purpose is meaning. So ego has purposed this meaninglessness to be proof of separateness, proof of suffering, proof of victimhood, proof of sickness and death. And the purpose of the world is to keep you identifying with the insane voice talking to itself in your mind. Your ego identity, your separate self. That's the purpose of the world. Okay, now the world doesn't mean anything, but is that your experience? Your experience is going to tell you that the world means a lot. So, workbook lesson number 1, nothing I see means anything at all. It's an illusion. How could it mean anything? It doesn't mean anything. But workbook lesson number 2, I have given everything I see all the meaning it has for me. That's the focus of A Course in Miracles. If I've chosen the Holy Spirit as my teacher, the world is simply for forgiveness. Everything should be happening exactly the way it's happening. So I have the opportunity to undo the meaning I'm seeing in the world, which is really the meaning I've given to myself. So yes, the world is meaningless, but the ego has given it a purpose, which is to preserve your separate self-identity. And so the Holy Spirit has a different purpose for it. It is not a place where you can be happy. It's not something that will deliver salvation to you. It is purely for forgiveness. That's what the world is for, purely for forgiveness. So it doesn't matter what's happening. It's not happening to anyone. It's not happening to awareness. It's not happening to the presence we all are in the Holy Spirit. So again, our focus is on the meaning we have given to what is meaningless, because that is the meaning you have given to yourself. Am I seeing the world as evil? Am I seeing it as unfair? Am I seeing it as violent? Am I saying that's what you have given the meaning to yourself over? So that's the focus of A Course in Miracles. It's not on giving the world that meaning, so I don't have to look at it in myself and then going, but it doesn't matter because it's not real. No, 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 no. You have to look at the meaning you've given to the world, because that's the meaning you've given to yourself. By undoing the meaning in the world, so that all you see is a world that is there to teach forgiveness. That's how you heal your own mind. So again, A Course in Miracles is about learning to see a forgiven world. And a forgiven world is a world that doesn't mean anything. It's a world that's not wrong. It just is. But it's an illusion, so it doesn't mean anything. It's not wrong. As long as you think there's a wrongness in the world, that's a wrongness you think that's in yourself. And that's because you're insane. You think you're a separate self made out of stories. So again and again, we're allowing the world to show us how insane we are because of the meaning we're seeing in it, which is really the meaning we have about ourselves, because we're insane. We've identified as this separate self. We look at the problem the way it is, not the way we've set it up. It's not the world that's the problem. It's my decision about what I am that's the problem. And can I look at that with no judgment? Can I completely forgive the fact that that's the decision that I'm making right now? Can I feel the forgiveness of the decision to be an illusion of myself? And then the felt sense of being, the softness, the awareness, the different consciousness that arises. That's the truth of me and the truth of everyone. So forgiveness, which is always forgiving myself for choosing to be an ego. The world doesn't need to be forgiven. It's perfect. It's doing exactly what it should be doing. So you can learn forgiveness. So you can undo the guilt in your mind. Nothing should be one bit different than it is. And so when I'm arguing with the world, that means I'm insane. And so hundreds of times a day, this is about noticing what you're doing. You've gone and identified with this self made out of stories, this body with a story. Otherwise, you wouldn't be seeing the world as wrong. So again, you look at the fact that you've made the wrong decision with no judgment, with complete peacefulness with that being the case. Don't get stuck in the flypaper. Do nothing. If wrongness is in my mind, which I think is in the world, then I've simply made the wrong choice. And I do nothing except look on that with no judgment. And what rises in my mind, this presence, this peace, this awareness, this one who looks, that's not a person. It's got nothing to do with the insane voice talking to itself in your mind. Nothing.
Thank you, sweetheart.
So it's a completely different identity, a non-conceptual identity, one that doesn't have a past or a future, one that no concept can limit. Awareness, present moment, non-judgmental awareness, the truth of you and everyone. In that we are one. And our shared purpose is awakening from the dream of the person to this as our reality. Right, we better move on to another question, Stephanie.
Okay, now do you want me to continue with the chat or would you like to go live, like to a live question?
I'll let you be the master of ceremonies, Stephanie, whatever you think comes next.
Okay, let's go with Anne. Anne, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, Keith.
Hello, Anne.
Lovely to see you from the
Likewise.
UK. I've been loving your talks, Keith. They're just, I just can't tell you how much they've given me in a very reasonably short time. I've been involved in non-duality for about 8 years, but this seems to marry and it's speeded up the process quite well. It seems to have really filled in some gaps and speeded me along. So I've been in a really, really good space, and things happening, seeing through things quite quickly, and also seeing through that the hatred of the ego and how it's projected onto people very quickly, and there's a beautiful process that I know you speak of, that Byron Katie does, where you can just turn it around quite quickly in your mind. And when you're seeing it as real, that the ego's mine, it's quite scary. And then all of a sudden you can, that the ego is on someone else, that they're hating on me, and really I'm projecting my self-loathing onto them. Then it's lovely how I can bring it back to me, and it just releases it instantly, just undoes the sort of lie of it, the unreality of it, and it's really beautiful. That's one part of it. But the other part of it is, I'd got onto this place about a week or so ago of like, oh my God, this is so free. Where do I go from here? It's like, I've got no problems, and even to the point of like, I don't even want to listen to teachings, because where's the problem, And then I got ill. This can be a pattern of mine, almost like I get bored and then go back into identifying myself or some self-hatred. There's a lot of self-loathing. Anyway, that happened. And then this week, what's happened is that, and I know this is all a story, but it's the only way I can tell it, obviously. I'm not very emotional. I used to be when I was younger, but obviously I've been, not obviously, but I've been through a lot, and I thought I got it all cried out. And I thought it's strange that I'm not emotional. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I watched 3 films this week, or series, and they've just touched something really, really deep in me, some emotional, which has really shocked me, because I never get that moved by films. They're just films, I don't see anything in them, but it's almost like they've been showing me my sort of life story in the illusion. And yesterday I watched this series, a love story called One Day, and I was just in such grief, utter devastating till about 6 a.m. grief. And it's kind of going now, but I still feel fragile, and I can hear it in my voice. And I know I'm not fragile, but that's the emotion. And it's just shocked me, because it's as if it's showing me something. And it's like, it was like watching a movie of my life and seeing how I've always had this longing to be in this pure, innocent relationship or marriage. And my marriage fell apart, but there was just like, what series of disasters and failures and longing, and that's what my whole life was about. All I wanted was that pure, innocent love that never came about. And then it felt like utter devastation and loss, which I've never felt before. I've obviously repressed it maybe, or something. And this utter failure, and that is never going to be had now. And I can also see that that longing is not really for the relationship. The longing is for the freedom and the love that I am.
Yes,
and,
brilliant.
And that God is, and that I so desperately want to get to, or have recognized as what I am. However, it's just blown me apart and left me all over the place, because now no concepts seem to touch it. And even trying to listen to you today, they just seem like concepts, and they can't, I just don't know how to explain it. So I'm just, there's a call for help, really.
Okay. Well, let's try and take it section by section. So you hit the nail on the head. Okay. All any of us want is happiness and love.
Mm.
That's all anyone wants. You ask someone, you know, what do you want in life? They'll go, oh, I need to be successful and I want to have a happy marriage and I want to have kids and I want to have enough money and I want to travel and I want to see the world. That's not what they want. They want happiness and they think that's the way to be happy. All anyone wants is happiness, lasting happiness. That's all anyone wants. Anything else is just what they think will make them happy. Relationships, family, money, success, power, accomplishment, legacy. They think that's what will make them happy. It won't. None of it. All anyone wants is happiness. And happiness is very simple. It means letting go of your mistaken identification with a self made out of thoughts. What we are shared identity in the Holy Spirit. There's no lack there. There's no need there. There's no want there. There's nothing required. Everything is there. There's absolutely nothing that could be needed or wanted there. But we attack the Christ in ourselves to identify with the insane voice talking to itself in the body. We make up a self-concept, as Jesus calls it. The self we make, that's not the Son of God. We make it up out of thoughts. And this terrible, appalling limitation of what we are as a son of God is experienced as suffering and need and lack and want. And now, instead of undoing this mistaken identification as an illusion of ourselves, this lacking, needing, wanting, pathetic thing that wants to try and fill itself up, instead of just undoing that, what we do is we go out into the world and going, this illusion can now become better and bigger and more satisfied, and I can find love in the world and a relationship will make me feel whole. No, it won't. You've already thrown wholeness out of our mind. We've already thrown the Holy Spirit away. We've divorced ourselves from what our happiness is. Now there's no happiness. There's only seeking and not finding. That's the ego's cruel dictum. Seek and do not find. Seek for a perfect relationship with another separate self, another body. That'll make you happy. It certainly will not.
But what I can't understand is, I thought I got to that point, and I haven't been craving a relationship for the first time in my life. I'm really happy on my own.
Yeah, no, this is brilliant. No, this is brilliant. But what I want, no. See, that's the first important thing we have to say, right? And you've gotten this, right? You've had this glimpse of the truth of what you are, separated from thoughts. Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay. Once you've done that, that does not mean that we now skip all the way to the real world. No, no, no. Now that you have discovered that you're not a self made out of thoughts or a body, now that you've discovered this shared identity we have in the Holy Spirit, you have popped the cork. Every unresolved trauma, regret, guilt, inadequacy that has ever been felt. And all of it has to come up to be healed in the light of what you are as awareness in the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, that's what I hear in non-duality as well. It's like a big space opens and then stuff comes up, which is what's happening here. I see that.
Yes. But the only problem is you're saying this is bad. Why is this happening? It shouldn't be happening. Okay, so if all things work together for good, except in the ego's judgment. What could you not accept if you but knew that all things, past, present, and to come, are gently planned by one whose only purpose is your good? If that's true, everything that's happening is perfect.
Yeah.
And so all you have to do is feel your okayness and allow grief to be there. The grief is there and it wants to heal. And all you have to do is offer no resistance to it. It's the grief over the loss of what we are. All grief is the loss of God. Everything else is just a story, a smokescreen we made up to cover that up. So emotions are not a problem, ever. Grief is not a problem. Anger is not a problem. No matter what comes up in you, that's not a problem. That's what's coming up to heal. And your only job is to not say it shouldn't be there.
I think it's just the hopelessness of like that. It'll never be.
No, but if hopelessness is coming up, that's perfect. All you have to know is that that's perfect right now and not resist it. So the only thing that will hurt you is fighting it, going, this shouldn't be like this. There is nothing to ego, to separate self-identity, other than resisting the present moment. And so when you completely allow the present moment to be, including what wants to come up and be healed, when you completely allow it, when there's no judgment, if fear wants to be there, allow it to be there. It should be there. If hopelessness is there, it should be there. If anxiety is there, it should be there. Can I allow it to be there so it can pass through? So you just have to know nothing in the world is wrong. Nothing that happens in any moment is wrong. If you think it's wrong, you've made the wrong decision, but you can choose again by allowing things to be as they are. And when you really do that, there is no ego there. Yes, there's anger, but it doesn't belong to anyone. It doesn't mean anything. It's just passing through you. It's just getting healed. Or grief. It doesn't belong to anyone. When you really allow it, when you offer no resistance to it being there, there's no ego there, so it doesn't belong to anyone, but it's just what's passing through you. And all you have to do is be okay that it is. So it doesn't matter what emotions are coming up to heal. They have to come up to heal. The only way you can get this wrong is by thinking it's wrong.
It's just that, you seemingly live through all this, and then, watching a movie of it all again, it's like, when the fuck does it end? I've been through it. I don't want to watch a movie of it again.
No. You see what? No.
That's what it felt like.
No. Yeah, but can you see how? Yeah, but you're saying that as the person.
Right.
You're saying, when does it end for me, Anne? When does my pain end? When do I, Anne, when do I, the ego, become free of pain? Never. Never. Identifying as separate is pain. All pain comes from separateness. All of it. There's no hope for bodies, for stories. Because you're not a story. How could you, the Holy Son of God, be happy as a story
Mm.
with concepts, with clawing in the dirt of this world for something that might make you happy and pushing away the things that you think have power over you? How could you find happiness in that? You can't.
Yeah.
No, 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 no. You are happiness itself, but you just believe stories about you that aren't about you. You just believe your thoughts.
Yeah, I think when those emotions are just so strong,
But the
I've just
emotions are perfect. The emotions
I
are great.
but I'm just re-identifying with the stories in them again.
Yeah, but you can choose
Let the
again in
stories.
every moment. You can choose again in every. All you have to do is not fight yourself.
Mm,
Can I forgive the emotions coming up? Can I completely allow them to be there? Can I offer no resistance to them? Can I understand all things are working together for good? Can I allow what's happening right now completely? And now the truth of what you are comes back to your mind. It's in the allowing. It's in the forgiveness. It's in the one who looks without judgment. Does that make sense?
yeah,
But
yeah,
don't be thinking that grief was in you and it had to come up to be healed. This is brilliant. All you
mm,
have to do is not fight it. You just have to be okay that it's coming up to heal. You have to give it permission to be there,
mm,
and it will move straight through you. But you're
mm,
claiming it. You're going, that's my grief.
yeah,
Okay, because of my story. You don't have a story.
yeah. I think it's just that subtle thing that you talk about in a lot in the background, going, "What am I going to do about this?" Which is ego again.
Well, it's all
You
just nonsense because you don't have to do anything to be happy.
know,
You just
exactly.
have to let go of the stories.
Mm,
So just for now, allow whatever wants to come up to be healed. And, just notice that all these objections, they're not yours.
mm, no,
But don't fight them. All you have to do is look at the problem the way it is. I'm identified with a body with a story.
mm,
So I'm fighting everything. I'm fighting with the movies. I'm fighting with the emotions that are coming up. I'm fighting with the shitty past I have. I'm fighting with the future I'll never have. And
mm,
the problem is not the movies or the emotions or the past or the future. Um, the problem is you're identified with an illusion of yourself, and you don't fight that. Can you just stop saying it's the movies and it's the emotions that are wrong and it's the past that's wrong and it's the future? No, it's not. There's only one problem,
mm,
which is that you're identified as a story instead of as awareness. So can you completely forgive yourself for the decision that you're making? Do not fight it. Do not try and change it. Do not try and fix it. Do not feel guilty about it. Can you know it's okay? Can you just allow what's happening to happen?
mm.
That lets the power of heaven back into your mind. It's the peacefulness, it's the non-resistance, it's the non-judgment, it's that non-conceptual identity that looks and doesn't judge, which is you and me and everyone. So does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, completely. Yeah,
Good. Perfect. Thanks, Anne.
it's
Best of luck with that. Just be completely okay with what's happening.
yeah,
Emotions are not a problem. It's when you fight them and say they're wrong. That's where everything goes wrong.
yeah,
This is just something that wants to pass through you.
mm,
It just wants to heal in you. Let it be there to heal. It will heal in your allowing of it and not judging it.
yeah.
Thanks, Anne. Perfect.
Thank you
What should we
so
do
much.
next? My pleasure. What will we do next, Stephanie?
Okay, let's go back to the chat. If the story of the world is already written and it was over before it even started, then why is it important that we understand anything or do anything. Can you clarify what it is meant by the outcome is already known? I guess I'm just confused as I am just a dream character within a dream, and my story is already written, and the outcome is known.
No, one problem, one solution to every problem you're identified with an illusion with yourself. This is what people do. They claim their nonsense, made up, illusory identity and say, I am just a dream figure. No, you're not. No, you're not. I am just a dream figure. You are not. You are the Holy Son of God. You think you are a dream figure and you're wrong. Of course you exist. You just do not exist as the thing you think you are. We never want to say, I just exist as a dream. No, you don't. That's your mistake. That's the only thing that causes all your pain and suffering, is that you think you're something you're not. And the good news is you don't have to go looking for what you are. You only have to undo your mistaken identification with what you're not. And it's simple. All you have to do is look at how much you don't want to stop being the imaginary dream figure and don't judge yourself for it. Just look at the fact that you're choosing to identify with the insane voice talking to itself in your mind and don't judge it. And what's in your mind? The peace of non-judgment, the peace of forgiveness, the peace of the Holy Spirit, our shared identity. Who is the one that sees that there's a decision getting made to identify with the voice in your head? You, the light of the world. You are not a dream figure. That's the mistake. So the answer isn't going, oh, I'm just a dream figure. No, no, that's the mistake you've been making all along. Now, can you look at that mistaken decision without judging yourself for it and feel the presence in your mind that doesn't have a past or future, that isn't bound by any of the insane thoughts in your mind? There's no such thing as dream figures. There's no such thing as separate selves. That doesn't mean you don't exist. Yeah. You are God's holy son that is one with him for all eternity. You just think you're a dream figure, but you're not. And what does it matter what happens to the dream figure? It's not you. Your only problem is you think it's you. Jesus didn't care about what happened to a body on a cross. It wasn't him. And he wants to teach you the same thing. And all you have to do is look at your mistaken identification with thoughts so you can choose against them, so you can be what looks. And again, we just use the miracle each time to return from madness. You are not a dream figure. You are not the voice in your head. It's insane. None of the stories are about you. That's what we rediscover every time in the holy instant. Not that we don't exist, but that we thought we were something that doesn't exist. Separate. So I hope that makes sense. Anything else, Stephanie? Oh, you're on mute, Stephanie.
Yeah, there's still some more questions here in the chat, and
Oh.
Want to take a couple more or?
Yeah, let's draw a line under them and we'll deal with the ones that are left.
Okay. All right. So next one is from Julie. Lesson 10, my thoughts do not mean anything. And lesson 16, I have no neutral thoughts. It feels to my mind like a contradiction, and I can't get over it. Can you explain?
So first of all, it's like Jesus was saying in the review today. None of the noise in your head means anything. Okay, it's got nothing to do with you. It's not you. The only problem we have is that we think it is. So it doesn't mean anything. However, your thoughts about what you are will manufacture a world for you. So there's just what's happening. It doesn't mean anything and it has no power over you, but your thoughts will concoct an entire narrative of what's going on. And it will be your experienced reality. You know, you can see in life people that go through difficult circumstances in life and nothing gets them down. Nothing gets them down. They just bounce back from everything and they just are able to turn everything around and see it from a positive perspective. And they're dealing with a lot. And then you have other people who are dealing with nothing and they fall apart because it's not about what's happening. It's the narrative in your head. Creates your perception of reality. So those ego thoughts, they have no power in heaven. They don't exist. But if you make them real, it's going to make a world that's going to feel very real for you. So again, the noise in your head means nothing unless you believe it. You know, if someone is psychotic, then their delusions don't mean anything to anyone else because they're just delusions. But for the person experiencing them, there could be stark terror. But it doesn't mean they're real. So the thoughts you choose to believe for yourself will shape what you think reality is. And if you change your thoughts, you change your experience of reality. And the pictures haven't changed, but the narrative has. So again, we're just learning to not believe our thoughts, to choose against them. You have to look at them first. You have to look at the error first in order to have the power to choose something else. Because you're always, the alternative choice is to be what looks, the invulnerability that looks. But you don't have that option until you look at the mistake you're making with no judgment. Now you can be what looks. And what looks is always okay. So I hope that makes sense. Any more, Stephanie?
There are, but we'll probably just take one more, hey?
Well, no, let's see them through. Is there many?
Well, there's 3 or 4 there for sure.
Okay, well, let's see how we go. Hit me with the next one.
Okay, good. All right, Thiago is next. He says, or she says, looking through the vision of the Holy Spirit, is the world an illusion or is the world the Christ?
I mean, the first thing to understand is you don't have vision as Chago. Chago is the separate self. And so vision is undoing your mistaken identification as Chago, who sees the world as a bad place and an evil place and a place to find happiness and a place to be made unhappy and a place where there's suffering. So what you have to do is, in the holy instant, you have to let go of all the concepts of what you are. Let go of all the beliefs of what you are. Let go of all the stories. Now, again, all you have to do is look at how much you don't want to let them go without judging yourself. And now non-judgmental presence comes into your mind. That's who you are. It was never Chago. And then what you are is what everything is. If you have awakened or undone your identification with the story Chago, and you are this non-conceptual identity, and from here you can see there's no Chago, it's just a story. Well, then none of the stories are true. None of the separate selves are true. There's just this. This is the truth of everything. So if you've undone your belief that you're the dream figure and you know you're the one dreamer of all of this, then that one dreamer is the truth of all the dream figures. So that's vision. That's why Jesus says they watch the dream figures come and go, shift and change, suffer and die, and they're not deceived by what they see. Unity alone is not a thing of dreams, and it is this God's teachers acknowledge behind the dream, beyond all seeming, yet surely theirs. So there is just this non-conceptual identity, this present moment awareness as the truth of everything and everyone. Again, there's just one mind dreaming itself to be everyone. If you undo your mistaken identification as Chago to be that dreaming mind, know yourself as the dreamer, that's what everyone is. And they're either expressing that knowing or they're crying out because they don't know. They're expressing that non-conceptual identity, which is the truth of everyone, or they are crying out in painful, dysfunctional ways because they think they're an insane voice talking to itself in their mind. But they're not. And if you know you're not an insane voice talking to itself in your mind, you know no one is. The awakeness in you sees the awakeness in everyone. And by not sharing their dream that they're an insane voice talking to itself in a body, you weaken it, which is what healing is in the Course in Miracles. Just being around someone who's not identified with the insane voice talking to itself in their mind, who knows all is well, and who can see that all is well in you, no matter what you believe about yourself. That's very powerful. That's a transmission. The light you know yourself to be is what other people will feel themselves to be around you without you even opening your mouth. And so that decision against ego identification and the peace in your mind, it becomes a shining example to others in how you can do that. You can be peaceful, no matter what. But again, being around someone who's not identified with madness in their head, who's not identified with concepts of themselves, and who sees that as the truth of you is very powerful. And that's ultimately what Jesus wants us working on. that we fall back into the truth of what I am, that no thought or concept touches. And that's the truth of my brothers. Cool. Next one, Stephanie.
Okay, next up is Massimo. If none of my beliefs are true, does wanting to improve my experience in this world come from the ego?
Yes. All wanting comes from the ego, because what you are can't be wanting. And so it's a real trap in the beginning to be an ego wanting to be an enlightened ego. That's still ego. People don't become enlightened. People don't become awakened. People are awoken from. And so again, if I start from a position of lack, I've already made the mistake because I can't be lacking. The minute I'm in a place of lack and go, now I have to do spiritual processes, now I have to go on a spiritual path, now I have to, no, you've already made the only mistake there is. You've identified with a story. And this is the beauty of A Course in Miracles. It makes it so simple with this process of forgiveness, with this miracle process. So all you do is look at the fact that you don't feel whole. That's the problem. You've chosen to identify as an illusion of yourself, so you're not feeling whole. Now, can you completely forgive that? Can you look at the belief that you're not whole with complete non-judgment of yourself for it? And can you feel what rises in the forgiveness? It's not a person. It's not lacking. The presence that arises with non-judgment. It's already whole. And that's why over and over again, Jesus says in the Course, salvation can only be now. Only in this moment can you look at the decision that you're making with no judgment. And the non-judgmental looking is what you are. Christ is in the looking. Because what looks is bound by nothing and cannot be lacking, is already whole and complete. It's the light of the world that's the truth of everything and everyone. So the minute I'm going, I need to have more, you've already crossed the line. You've already identified with an illusion of yourself. And so all you're ever doing is looking at the error the way it is. You're not lacking. You cannot lack. Jesus says you cannot be sick and you cannot die, but you can confuse yourself with things that do. So if we're lacking, or we think we're sick, or we think we're dying, all we have to do is look at the fact that we're identifying with something we're not. And can we forgive ourselves for that? Can we look at it with no judgment? Forgiveness. And in the forgiveness is the truth of what you are revealed. That's why forgiveness offers me everything I want. Because I know myself as what's forgiving. My true identity is this openness, this yes to experience, this resistance to nothing. The truth of me needs no defense because it's invulnerable, birthless, deathless, eternal. And I'm always returned to what I am through forgiveness. And you're only ever forgiving yourself for choosing to be an ego. I'll say that again because it's so crucial. All you're ever forgiving is your own decision to be an ego. You're not forgiving the world. You only thought the world was wrong because you chose to be an ego. You are never forgiving anything other than your own decision to identify with an illusion of yourself. But in forgiveness, in the forgiving of yourself, in this moment, is the presence that you are. That's not a person, that's not lacking, that doesn't want or need. The minute you forgive your decision to be the person, the lacking thing, the minute there's no resistance, non-judgment, there is this presence. That's what you are. And all is well, because that's the truth of everything and everyone. Now, as we awaken to this, that does not mean suddenly it's all hop, skip, and jump to the real world. No, all of the unresolved trauma has to come up. All of the guilt that remains in your mind has to come up. But now you can be this okayness with whatever wants to heal. Now grief can come up and you can be the okayness with the grief being there for as long as it needs so it can move out of your experience. So that's it. Forgiveness offers me everything I want. Forgiveness returns to me my inheritance, what I really am. Each time I go insane and think I'm the insane voice talking to itself in my mind with all of its schemes and wants and needs and aversions. Forgiveness in the present moment instantly returns you back to what you are. Anything else, Stephanie?
Yes. Okay, this next one is from Zayden. Zayden says, I am a recovered alcoholic. What started my journey was realizing what made me happy was doing the right thing. The course shook that up for me a bit, but I realized it was just me trying to have a better ego than other egos. I struggle with the thinking of what is right and wrong, but I see the error in that thinking. I know I just need to forgive. There is, wait, just 1 second now. There is a line in the 12-step program that says, whenever I'm disturbed, there's something wrong with me. I have been forgiving people for what never really happened, but I'm not sure I'm including myself. I'm disturbed because I have made the illusion real, correct? And it is actually me who needs the forgiveness along with my images, my projected images.
But again, what you are as this presence that you will always find in forgiveness, always. What you are as that presence doesn't need forgiveness. It doesn't need to do things to establish its worth. Its worth is already established. It's established by God. So again, we're only ever looking at the problem the way it is and not the way we've set it up. So I might have set it up that I did things that made me a bad person, and now I need to do other things in order to make me a better person. And I need to, like, have atonement and, like, make up for what I've done and do things so I'm better and than other people. But they're not problems. They're just symptoms of the one problem you have, which is that you don't know your worth's already established. The mistake isn't that you're trying to find worth and not finding it. It's like you don't know it's already there. As Eckhart Tolle says, you get there by realizing you're already there. So again, in your situation, when there's an upset present, when there's a sense of lack, when there's scheming of what I need to do in the world to establish my worth, just look at the problem for what it is instead of the way you're setting it up. You don't need to do anything. You just need to see that you're identified with a concept of who you are. None of the concepts are about you. Whatever your concept of who you are and what your worth is and what you've done, it's all wrong.
Just keep going until he tells you that it's not.
Completely wrong. It's completely, all concepts are wrong. And you can escape concepts by looking at your mistaken decision to be a concept with no judgment and complete forgiveness. You can allow it to be. When you allow it to be, the Holy Spirit has come. It's the presence. It's the one who's looking with no judgment. You get to flip out of the mistaken identification made out of thoughts. You get to flip back into this that is bound by no concept. Jesus says everyone is obsessed with the idea of solving the riddle of themselves. What am I? And he says very simply, salvation can be seen as nothing more than the escape from concepts. So ask yourself, what am I? And your mind will answer and go, well, you're an ex-alcoholic, and you'll go, well, that's just a thought. That's not me. So what am I? Well, I'm kind of not too bad of a person in an evil world. That's a concept. It's not you. So keep asking, what am I? And as you do that, eventually it will be, I am peace. That's still a concept. So you go, that's just a thought. What am I? I am presence. That's still a thought. That's a concept. What am I? And if you do that, you'll come to the quiet center. The stately calm, where there's just a beingness, but there's nobody claiming it. There's nobody claiming the experience. There's nobody saying, I am this. There is just beingness. Just don't believe any of the concepts in your mind. They're all wrong. All the concepts of your past are wrong. You don't have a past. It's just a story, just made out of thoughts. That's what Jesus is teaching us to do in the workbook from the earliest lessons, is get behind all the thoughts. They're not about you. Your present moment awareness. All the concepts are wrong. Everything you think about yourself, about why you're good, why you're bad, why you're holy, why you're, oh, they're all lies, because no concept touches what you are. And all you have to do is forgive yourself for making a concept real. And who is the one that's looking without judgment? That one's not a concept. And it's whole already. There's no lack there. No needs, no requirements. And each time we touch back into this non-conceptual identity in the holy instant, it's like gold in the bank. It fundamentally shifts everything. Your mind's getting healed in ways you might never consciously have an awareness of. Once you let non-judgment or forgiveness into your mind, it's the beginning of the end of the ego. It's the beginning of the end of suffering. Any tiny glimmer of non-judgment in your mind spells the beginning of the end for the ego. All you ever have to do is look at your decision to be an ego without judging yourself. And the ego's days are numbered. Because you've allowed the sweetest, most beautiful, most powerful force in the dream into your mind. Non-judgment. Forgiveness. You need only forgive yourself for how much you don't want to forgive. Be awake in your mind, forgiving yourself for how much you don't want to forgive. That'll bring you all the way home. That's the little willingness.
Just trying to find whoever it is that's unmuted. I found one person, but now there's somebody else.
No worries. Have we another question, Stephanie?
Yes. Okay, Tanya asks, can I still have a happy dream in the world and experience atonement?
Yeah, but you must understand, Jesus had a happy dream. A body was crucified, but what did it have to do with him? See, the question seems important because you're going, well, I am a body. It's kind of important what happens to the body. No, it's not. No, it's not. Your happy dream is that it doesn't matter what happens to the body because it has nothing to do with you. That's the happy dream. You're not the dream figure. So when we think it's important, you know, the body has to be a certain way, the finances have to be a certain way, the love life has to be a certain way, that's going to be my happy dream. That's not your happy dream. Your happy dream is that the dream has no power over you and you need nothing from it. That's the happy dream. The happy dream is where you can sleep on the streets or in a mansion. That's real liberation. So we have to be vigilant for the ways the ego tries to preserve itself. You know, atonement means there's no separateness. You're not a separate self. So you're not a body. That's what atonement means. Separation never happened. There's no such thing as separateness. There's just the oneness of God. And that's in your mind right now. And you can return to the memory of it each time you forgive yourself for choosing to be an ego. It's found in the forgiveness. That's where your invulnerability is. That's the happy dream. So when we feel a little bit disappointed by that, that's just, now we look at the problem the way it is instead of the way we're setting it up. We still want to be an ego. So can you completely forgive yourself for that? Can you look at the fact that right now, my fear is too great and I still want to be an ego? But can I not blame the world? Can I not say, yeah, but it's very important what happens to bodies? No, it's not. You only seems that way because you still want to be one. But can you completely forgive yourself for it? And each time you do, this alternative consciousness is present in your mind. And it will completely undo your fear of not being a body. It will completely undo your belief that you're a person. It'll completely undo your belief in suffering. Where there's only one thing ever being forgiven, and that's our decision to be an ego. And salvation, which means nothing more than lasting happiness and the end of suffering, it's found in forgiveness. It's found in the looking. It's found in the identity that looks without judgment. Cool. Have we more, Stephanie?
Yes, there's a couple more. They keep streaming in, and there's some comments as well. But anyway, we'll just proceed, hey?
Well,
Okay.
let's do two more because we'll have to draw a line under it then. So that'd be great.
Okay. From Joyce. Can you speak about what comes after the recognition of our true self, the Holy Spirit? Thank you.
So again, the course is, especially the workbook, it's geared towards you feeling this non-conceptual identity you can be in the Holy Spirit, in behind thoughts, when you let them go. When you just let go of identifying with them. Jesus is training us to find this non-conceptual identity, this non-judgmental awareness that we are. But that's just the beginning of the work. Because now you have to stand as this, as your identity, whilst all of the guilt comes up out of your mind to be healed. So the sole purpose of the right mind, which is non-judgmental awareness, non-judgmental looking, is to undo the wrong mind, which is the ego identity, the separate self. Now, once the ego is undone, once the belief in separateness and sin and guilt is undone, once there's a seeing of a forgiven world where there's no wrongness in it, it's just for forgiveness. But there's nothing wrong, except in an ego's opinion, but that's gone now. So the world is just what's apparently happening. And then there's the right mind, non-judgmental awareness. Its job done and no longer needed, it dissolves as well. And now there's no self here. There's no more perception. Now, again, that's not annihilation, but it means there's nobody here to perceive. There's a pure presence, but it's not, it has no interpretation of anything. And that's the real world. You know, when Jesus was in the real world, he didn't have to forgive things. because there was no one there to forgive. There's just this presence that is one with everything, but there's no perception. So again, the course process is that you use right-minded perception to undo wrong-minded perception. When wrong-minded perception is gone, then there's no more need for right-minded perception, like forgiveness and stuff like that. And now there's really no perceiver here. There is just a pure presence that is the truth of everything. So again, our process is, rather than identifying with a wrong-minded self, that we learn how to identify with a right-minded self, which is awareness. But as you work with that, awareness will give way to a beingness, which is like the light that's in everything. Hope that makes sense. We do one more, Stephanie?
Okay. The next one is from Cookie. Now, I don't think I said this one yet. Is it okay to make the dream better with better thinking and choices, knowing it isn't real?
See, once you start out from the premise that I can be happy through what I do, you're wrong. And it's wrong-minded. Because you've started off with a belief in lack, which you now want to fix in the world. And so whatever thoughts are present, contributing towards decisions and doings, they're all wrong-minded. They're all soiled with the belief in lack and need and guilt and separate interests and grasping. And it won't be satisfied. There is no happiness in the world. That's what Jesus means when he says the ego's cruel dictum is seek and do not find. It's a lie. I'll be happy when I get these exams. I'll be happy when I get the right job. I'll be happy when I meet the right person. I'll be happy when that person treats me better. I'll be happy when we're married. I'll be happy when we have kids. I'll be happy when the kids are older, when they're healthier, successful. I'll be happy when I get that promotion I deserve. I'll be happy to have more financial stability. I'll be happy when we get through this crisis in the relationship. I'll be happy when we get back together again. It's a moving goalpost. It doesn't work. It never has. Be very honest with yourself and go, have I found lasting happiness doing this strategy of seeking for it in the world? Have I ever found it? And if you're very honest with yourself, you'll answer yourself and go, no. And you never will. You will die first. It is utterly hopeless to look for lasting happiness in the world because it's not there. It's a madness inside all of us where we keep convincing ourselves it is there, but it's not. The very fact that you think it's attached to the world or what you do in the world or can get in the world or grasp at in the world, the very fact that you think it's there means you're looking in the wrong direction. It is the very seeking itself that blocks from you that you are already happy. So there's nothing to the ego at all except seeking and resisting, grasping and fighting, seeking and resisting, grasping and fighting. It never gets anywhere, it just goes round in circles. So again, we look at the problem the way it is. The problem isn't that I'm not happy enough and that I need to try and look for it in the world and I need to try and manipulate the world to be a certain way so I might finally be happy as an ego. No, the only problem is that you're identifying as an ego. But who's the one that sees this without judgment? That one's already happy. Happiness itself. Awareness is already whole. Only your thoughts lie to you about what you are. You are happiness itself, but your thoughts tell you lies that you're unhappy, but none of them are true. Your thoughts tell you that you're limited. You're not. You're unlimited. Your thoughts tell you you're a body. You're not. There's no evidence of that whatsoever, and it's not true. Your thoughts tell you you're separate. You're not. They're all lies. Happiness is what you are. Once you go looking for it, there's no happiness. You're looking in the wrong place. You've already disowned happiness to be an illusion that can't be happy, seeking endlessly for a happiness that will never come. Death will come first. It's a very cheery note to leave in terms of our meeting today. Let me find a quote from the Course. Let me do a paraphrase on this. Yes. All right. Seek not outside yourself, for it will fail, and you will weep each time an idol falls. Heaven cannot be found where it is not. And there can be no peace excepting there. Each idol that you worship when God calls will never answer in his place. There is no other answer you can substitute and find the happiness his answer brings. Seek not outside yourself, for all your pain comes simply from a futile search for what you want, insisting where it must be found. What if it's not there? Do you prefer to be right or happy? Be you glad that you are told where happiness abides, and seek no longer elsewhere. You will fail. But it is given you to know the truth and not to seek for it outside of yourself. You know, each idol that you worship when God calls will never answer in his place. There is no other answer you can substitute and find the happiness his answer brings. His answer is what you are. That's what God's answer is, what you are now. Not when you finish the workbook. Not when you've buffet lined another 5 different spiritual options. Now, the Holy Spirit in your mind now is God's answer to what you are, which is happiness. And if you're looking outside yourself, you've already made the one mistake. You've identified with an illusion of yourself that can be lacking. You can't be lacking. You can just believe your thoughts, all of which are wrong. So God's answer is the Holy Spirit, which is the memory of what you are. where there's no lack. It can't be countenance there. It's a ridiculous idea. It just can't exist. And you can return there any time by forgiving yourself for choosing to be the lacking illusion. And feeling the consciousness that rises in forgiveness. It's not thoughts. Thoughts are all lies. It's a felt sense of being. It's a presence. It's what you are. Forgiveness brings us home to what we are. Always. And now your doing in the world can reflect what you are. It's an overflow of the abundance that's already there. It's an extending of what you are to everyone. And you need nothing in return. Once you return to what you are, behind all the thoughts, it's the end of seeking. Seeking is insane. Seeking means you don't know what you are. You're insisting you're something else. You want to be right instead of happy. I'm right that the separation is real, that I'm a separate being, and I need to go out into the world and I need to manipulate it, and it's going to make me happy. It won't. That's what Jesus is saying to you. It won't. It has never made anyone happy, ever. It has not worked for you up until now. It will never work for you. It will never take away the gaping chasm of inadequacy and weakness and self-hatred. It will never remove it, ever. It'll seem like it removes it for an hour. But it will not work. The minute you're embarked on seeking or becoming or wanting or needing, you're insane, because you are happiness itself. But you're choosing to believe your thoughts and think you're something you're not, which cannot be happy, which can only seek and never find. But again, forgiveness brings you home to the truth of you, which you share with everyone. Happiness itself. It's found in forgiveness. It brings you home to wholeness. So you can share that with all your brothers. Everything else won't work. Knock yourself out. Just forgive yourself for it as you're doing it. The madness of it. You know, if you're going to choose to be an ego, for the love of God, don't judge yourself. Don't make yourself guilty for it. And if you just do that much, if you're looking at yourself choosing insanity without calling it guilty, that'll bring you all the way home.
I was thinking we'd have to move
Forgiveness in
the
your mind
doorknob and put it in
cannot
a different
but.
position, but no.
Hi, Janice. Can you just mute your
That's
computer?
perfect.
Yeah. Guys, I'm going to leave it at that. That was a cheerier note than the previous notes. So we leave the last words to Jesus. Listen, you are happiness itself. Everything else is insane. If you're indulging it, just look at it without judging yourself. And that will bring you home to the happiness that you are. Guys, have a wonderful Sunday. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Keith.
And thank you, Stephanie,
Thanks,
for
Keith.
co-hosting with me.
Extricating.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Keith.
Hello.
Woohoo.
Love